From this point forward, everything you say can and will be used against you and being recorded. Just keep that in mind. All right, let's start. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for another evening to look at your word, and I pray again that this would not be merely academic exercise, but would be sharpening and even life transforming, even as your word is sharper than a two-edged sword. I pray that our own ways of thinking would be addressed, encouraged, assaulted, whatever need be, by your word, even as we're thinking about grammatical relationships. And we ask it in Jesus' name. Okay, I have in my hands the crutches. Okay. There are advantages and disadvantages to having things like this. I finally taped it in. So, on the front page is the cheat sheet, which has lists of prepositions. It has abbreviations for your parts of speech. It has our verb analysis chart. Your second page, I believe Sarah Demarest is to be thanked for the second page. Is that correct? Isn't that beautiful? It's got colors.
Wow,
Yeah.
Shaded colors.
Shaded colors. What you're looking at there is what we're doing with clause relationships. So when we have more than one clause that we're diagramming, this chart is to help you figure out how are they related to each other. Independent clauses on the left, dependent clauses in two columns on the right. You have in the middle one sort of dependent clause is your relative clause. That's anything that has a relative pronoun in it. And on the other side, your subordinate clauses. And you have a bunch of different categories for those. Do they have to deal with purpose, or time, or result? So, you can do your morning devotions memorizing that chart. And then the last page I gave you is just the sentences we've been using and the ones we won't get to. So that you can practice. You can take that sort of blank chart, say, okay, let's see if I can go back and do what we did in class. And then you have the videos you can look at to check your work. But all those sentences we've been using are there for you. All right, we're going to start with 2 Corinthians 4:17. I do have a stack, so. To the back, John is last. Okay, for momentary light affliction is producing for us an eternal weight of glory, far beyond all comparison. Okay? Let's start with prepositional phrases. Do we have any prepositional phrases to eliminate?
For us.
Okay, Mike says for us is a prepositional phrase.
Of glory.
Okay, of glory. Nice little rule in English. Of is always a preposition. That's helpful.
Far beyond all comparison.
Okay. I'm going to say beyond all comparison.
Okay.
It's a prepositional phrase. Okay. What do we have to have a prepositional phrase? Two things.
Prepositions.
A preposition and
Option.
an object of the preposition. Okay? Great. How many clauses do we have here? How many complete... but let me back up. What is a clause? Yeah, it's a group of words with complete predication. Okay, as opposed to a phrase, which is just a group of words. Phrase is a group of words. A clause is a group of words that you can make a complete sentence out of. It has complete predication, a subject and a predicate. Okay, momentary light affliction is producing for us an eternal weight of glory far beyond all comparison. We only have one clause here. What's our verb?
Is producing.
Is producing is our verb. Okay, do we have a subject?
Affliction.
Affliction. Okay. Diagram begins at the cross. What part of speech is affliction? It's a noun. What is a noun? Person, place, or thing, or idea. Okay, does affliction count as one of those? Yes, it's a thing. Okay, affliction is our subject. Is producing is our verb. Is verb. Can't think and write at the same time. Producing. Okay. Is producing. Is that a kind of verb that takes an object? Or is it a being verb?
It takes an object.
Okay, it takes an object. Okay, in this case, do we have a direct object?
Wait.
Wait. Good. Okay? Affliction is producing weight. Okay? That's our direct object. What is eternal? It's an adjective. What does an adjective modify? Noun. In this case, what is eternal modifying? Wait. Okay? What is an? Indefinite article. Good. And what is it pointing to? Wait. What kind of weight do we have? And eternal.
How do you know and goes to wait and not eternal?
Okay. What part of speech is eternal?
Adjective.
An adjective. What part of speech is the indefinite article? Adjective. And what do adjectives modify? Nouns. So you can't have an adjective modifying an adjective. It has to go to the noun. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Of glory is a prepositional phrase. Is it adjectival or adverbial? Adjectival. Meaning, this whole prepositional phrase, acting as a unit, functions like an adjective. Modifying what? Wait. Okay, so this is a glorious wait. We put our preposition, object line, object of the preposition. Of glory. What kind of wait is it? It is an wait, meaning indefinite. It is an eternal wait, and it is an of glory wait. Okay? What is momentary? Okay, it's an adjective modifying affliction. What about light? Same thing. Adjective modifying affliction. What kind of affliction? Light and momentary. Okay. What about for?
Conjunction.
It's a conjunction. What kind of conjunction? Is it coordinating or subordinating? How do we know that for is a subordinating conjunction? Because it's not coordinating. It's not and, or, but, nor. Okay? Good. Subordinating conjunction. Subordinating conjunction gets a circle. Subordinating conjunctions get a circle. Okay, this is going to connect us in some way to the clause that went before, the verse that went before. What about beyond all comparison? Is this prepositional phrase adjectival or adverbial? Okay, Sarah says adjectival, modifying. Okay. Okay. Yeah, either glory or wait. We'll have to make a decision. Anybody have another thought besides adjectival?
Could it be describing far?
Okay, can it describe far? What is far? Far is an adverb. What do adverbs modify? Adverbs, adjectives, and verbs. Yep. What is far modifying? Yeah, I think the arrow is going this way. I think far is modifying this prepositional phrase rather than the other way around.
Wow, I didn't know that ever happened.
I didn't either until this sentence. But if you ask yourself the question, something is beyond comparison. Well, how much beyond comparison? Far beyond comparison. Far is telling us to what degree beyond comparison. It's modifying beyond all comparison. If this prepositional phrase was not beyond all comparison, let's just say it was the comparative adjective, bigger. And we said something was far bigger than something else. Far would be modifying bigger. Right? Same thing's going on here. This adjective happens to be a prepositional phrase. But I gave it away. I called this an adjectival prepositional phrase. And I do believe it's modifying either weight or glory. Let's try it out in either spot. Dana, are you still thinking about far and the relationship to that? Okay.
I'm still trying to figure that whole thing out, but I guess
No, that's right. Because if you have the question, somebody else probably has the question too.
I'm still not seeing what far is talking about. Is it talking about the weight is far beyond?
So, yeah, good question. Is it a far weight? Nah, that doesn't sound right. It kind of sounds funny.
Glory.
But is it far beyond? Yeah, if I said I was beyond Saturn, you'd say, oh, Smed's on the other side of Saturn. If I said I was far beyond Saturn, I'm telling you more about the beyond. Right? I'm telling you about how far beyond I am. How great is the beyondness? Okay, now that's getting weird. Does that help at all? Okay. Okay. One way to test this is just put far on any other word in the sentence. And can you make any sense out of it? That's another way to get after it. I'll let you test that. An eternal weight of glory. Is the weight far beyond all comparison? Or is the glory far beyond all comparison? Okay. Let's do this. Weight, glory, weight gets one. What's that? Okay, we're taking a vote.
I say glory.
Okay, we get a glory.
Yeah, I think it could
Wait.
be just in context.
Glory.
I'm gonna go with weight.
I'm gonna go with weight.
Glory.
Wait. No, he means wait, he hasn't said
WAIT. Okay, weight wins. That's what it is. That's the answer. Let's ask some questions. Is Paul saying a momentary light? Let's simplify it. Affliction is producing weight. What kind of weight? A weight beyond all comparison. And by weight, what he has in mind here is significance. Or is he saying, affliction is producing for us a significance, something significant. Tell me about that significance. Well, it's a significance that is eternal. It is also a significance that is glorious. Well, how glorious is it? What kind of glory does this significance have? A beyond all comparison kind of glory. Both of those work, don't they? This is a weight beyond all comparison, or a weight that is described by glory that is beyond all comparison. You can preach a real nice sermon off either one of those. What's the answer? I don't know. This one got more votes, so we'll put it there. For now, we got to put it somewhere. And I don't know if we have enough information quite yet to make a determination. And in the end on this one, I have to make a guess. John Talley, you have a thought?
You can still preach on glory and still be okay.
Yeah, and you can get really excited about it.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to make a whole lot of difference And I'll back up and explain a little bit of the thought pattern behind this in a moment. But for now, let's just put, what did we decide? We decided wait.
Or is it?
Oh, one more glory. Okay, now it's 6-5. You voted twice. I heard that.
I don't know, does it have anything to do, the weight being the object, you know?
Yeah, that's a great question to ask. How often does Paul give a adjectival prepositional phrase as a modifier of an object of the prepositional phrase? Versus, how many times does Paul use adjectival prepositional phrases to describe direct objects? That's a legitimate syntactical question that you can actually do research on, and programs like Logos and other Bible software programs can actually answer that question for you if you ask it correctly. So that's a good way to do cross-reference. Typically, we think of cross-reference as, oh, I found this verse on election, I'm going to cross-reference to all the other verses on election. Well, you can do that. That's a theological cross-reference. Or, I found this great word, and I'm going to cross-reference every other use of this word. Or, you can cross-reference grammatical features. And we can see, how often does Paul do this? Or how often does the New Testament do this? Or how often does other Greek literature do this? And will that help us? Sometimes.
Does the original language make a difference in this one?
It might.
Okay.
It might. Fundamentally, the relationship's identical.
Okay.
It doesn't happen to here because excuse me, I'm gonna sneeze. Off camera. Okay. I don't want anybody slowing that down and watching. It's high definition. I don't want to see that.
Going viral.
All right. This relationship right here, we call the genitive relationship. In English, it happens to be very closely identical to the Greek genitive relationships. So this is one of those places where it overlaps so much that it doesn't matter. They come in waves for me. Okay. So we're going to put it under. I'm so sorry.
Need a pause button.
That's right. Okay, so we're gonna have this modified. What did we decide? Wait got 6 votes, and we had voter fraud on this one, so we're just gonna eliminate that. Okay. Beyond is our preposition. Comparison is the object of the preposition. All. How much comparison? All of it. And then far is an adverb modifying the whole prepositional phrase. We might just put it here.
So an adverb can modify a verb or an adjective?
Yeah, adverbs can modify verbs, adjectives, or other adverbs. So for instance, I am feeling well. He plays a sport well. Well would be an adverb modifying how he plays. You can modify well with another adverb. He plays very well. So there you have an adverb modifying an adverb. Does that make sense?
It does. I'm more confused about doing an adjective. I can't think of a time when it modifies an adjective.
Okay, yeah. My dog is very blue.
Is very what?
Blue.
Oh.
I have a blue dog. How blue is he? Like Smurf-like. Very blue. Okay. Okay. So a lot of times in a situation like this when I can't decide, I'll draw 2 diagrams and I'll put beyond all comparison under glory and I'll draw one where it's under weight. If I can't quite figure it out. What's interesting here in this situation, this idea of weight picks up on the Old Testament idea of glory. The Old Testament word for glory is kavod, and it means heaviness or weightiness. Right? If a surfer looks out pounding swell that's coming in. He says, dude, that's heavy. He means it's significant, right? If somebody has gravitas, that means they can throw their weight around. They are a significant person. His words are weighty, right? All of those things mean the idea of kavod, right? The Old Testament idea of glory was this Hebrew word kavod, weightiness. The New Testament word for glory in your Greek text is doxa. We get our word doxology or doxological from that, and it has the idea of light, of radiating, outshining light. What Paul does here is combines the idea of the Old Testament idea of God's glory being significant and weighty, and the New Testament idea of His glory radiating out in bright refulgence. And he combines them both by saying, what is waiting for us is a weight of glory. A weight of glory. A glorious weight. Here, Paul is combining these two ideas into one to capture the Old Testament weightiness of glory and the New Testament brilliance of glory, and kind of just making one new concept out of it. Right? He was a Hebrew thinker writing in Greek. What does he do? He puts them both together. Glorious weight. So there's a sense in which, here in this verse, it doesn't matter a whole lot where we put beyond all comparison. Because both of them, in this case, have to be talking about glory. Paul just uses the Old Testament idea of glory here. It's almost like he says, momentary light affliction is producing for us an eternal glorious glory. Well, which one is far beyond all comparison? Is it the gloriousness or the glory? Well, yeah. So I might have a hard time grammatically slotting this prepositional phrase. But it's not difficult in what Paul is getting at thought-wise, if we do our word study and understand what he's getting at. And I want you to see something here.
Doesn't he wanted to compare the light affliction with the weight?
Thank you. That's exactly right. This is staggering. Weight, light. And not light as in brilliance, but light as in featherweight. Right? He says light and momentary affliction. He's not talking about bright affliction. He's talking about not heavy. Right? Momentary. Eternal. Affliction is producing, and remember this, the whole idea here is that Old Testament form of glory. Affliction is producing for us glory. Glory. But one of the reasons he uses the idea of weightiness here is not just to pick up the Old Testament idea of glory, significance, but to contrast it to the relative insignificance of affliction. And he throws in this adjective eternal to contrast to the momentary nature of affliction. Now think for a moment about your affliction. Current, past, maybe future afflictions. They won't feel light and momentary. They won't feel light and momentary. When I get a cold, I feel like I've always had a cold. I don't remember what it was like to feel good. And that is insignificant in comparison with other kinds of afflictions that people undergo. And it doesn't feel light. When you're sick, when there's a relational trial, when there's pain or difficulty, man, it feels like everything. It's not featherweight. It's your whole life. It can consume you. It can invade every single aspect of everything else you're doing. What is Paul talking about here? Paul is crazy. You can't use these adjectives with that subject. Affliction cannot, you can't say light affliction. Those two words don't go together. Momentary affliction. You don't get afflicted by something that passes by. These are the wrong, doesn't Paul know these are the wrong adjectives? Hasn't he ever diagrammed sentences? These don't go over here. Unless this sentence is placed on the scales of eternity. Unless this diagram is showing us something of an equation with eternal perspective. Affliction produces glory. I can get there. Paul, just don't call it light and momentary, because mine's not. Unless we catch what kind of glory is being produced for us. It's weighty. In comparison to my afflictions, which now seem light if I see heaven correctly. And it's eternal, which make my very long, arduous, difficult, seemingly endless afflictions seem momentary. What makes Paul say affliction is momentary? Only if you have a right view of eternity. Only if you have a right understanding of glory. Only if the weight of glory has changed what affliction feels like to you. And without a heavenly perspective, without an eternal perspective, you will never use these adjectives. But Paul used these adjectives in this book. This is 2 Corinthians 4:17. In 2 Corinthians 4:12, Paul says, I know a man, and he won't name himself, but it's him. 14 years ago, I don't know whether in the body, out of the body, or what, I was ushered into heaven. He calls it the third heaven, meaning not the sky, not outer space, but into the throne room of God. I got to see things I can't tell you about. I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you. It was the ultimate inside look that would drive the rest of his earthly existence and change the way he looked at afflictions. Right? And what's the chapter right before Paul describes, I have this heavenly vision, and then Paul had to, or God had to afflict me, give me a thorn in my side from Satan to keep me humble. Because what I saw would cause me to boast. Because of the surpassing greatness of the vision, I was given a thorn in my side to keep me humble. We might be tempted to think, well, okay, Paul, you got to see heaven, and you were never really afflicted. Well, same book, 2 Corinthians 11. Paul's describing his ministry. He said, labors, imprisonments, beaten times without number, often in danger of death. 5 times I received from the Jews the 39 lashes. That is, they were allowed to give 40. They held one back just so they didn't accidentally break the law. But those are near-death experiences. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. Scott read that this morning. They threw rocks at him until they thought he was dead, and they left him there dead, and he got up and went back into the city and kept preaching. 3 times I was shipwrecked. A night and a day I've spent in the deep. I've been on frequent journeys and dangers from rivers, dangers from robbers, dangers from my countrymen, dangers from the Gentiles, dangers in the city, dangers in the wilderness, dangers on the sea, dangers among false brethren. I've been in labor and hardship through many sleepless nights, and hunger and thirst, often without food, and cold and exposure. And apart from such external things, there is the daily pressure on me of concern for all the churches. Who's weak and I don't feel it? Paul knew what it was to suffer. Paul knew what it was to suffer, probably more than we will. And yet he calls his affliction light, momentary. Not because they are, but because they are, if weighed against eternity.
For us, go under his producing.
Oh man, I left off stuff. Yes, thank you. Is producing for us. Thank you. That's really important. That's personal. Thanks, Mike. Yeah. Did you know your affliction's doing something for you? It's doing something for you. You might ask, well, how? How is affliction producing for us an eternal weight of glory? I don't know. That's one thing that we'll get to see when we get there. In what ways actually did that certain affliction add to this infinite, eternal, glorious weight? I don't know that we'll know until we get there. But here's a promise from God. Your affliction's doing something for you. By the way, is producing. Let's analyze this verb. Tense, voice, and mood.
Present. Perfect.
Okay. It's present and it's not perfect. It's just a present. Is producing is the same as produces. Two different ways to say the English present. How would you make it perfect? Has produced, right? A past action with ongoing results into the present. Or had produced, which would be bad news, or whatever. Is producing is present tense. What about the voice? Is it active or passive?
Can you remind us what the imperfect is?
Yeah, the imperfect is ongoing continuous action in the past. So affliction was producing for us. It was producing. Rather than simple past, which would just be affliction produced. Affliction was producing. There was an interesting one today in Steve Brotherton's communion meditation. What was it? Was he in Luke? Was it the end of Luke? Luke 23? So I hope you notice the imperfect tense with the thief on the cross. Or maybe next time you read it, you'll notice the imperfect tense with the thief on the cross. Luke 23:39. One of the criminals who were hanged. Okay, that's good. That's good grammar. Confused me for a second. One of the criminals who were hanged there was hurling abuse at him, saying, "Are you not the Christ? Save yourself and others. Save yourself and us." The other answered, "Do you not even fear God, since you're under the same sentence and condemnation? We are indeed suffering justly." And he was saying, verse 2, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." He was saying. What does that indicate? What is that imperfect tense? He was saying. What does that indicate? He didn't just say it one time. He was having a running conversation with Jesus that went something like this. "Jesus, remember me when you come in your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come in your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come in your kingdom." The author, Luke, did not use the imperfect here accidentally. It's on purpose, and it's trying to tell you something. By contrast, in the next verse, Jesus says, or in this verse 43, Jesus says, let me back up, I'm talking too fast. In verse 43, it says, "And Jesus said to him." Okay? In the English tense, or in the English text, just a simple past tense. Author's not trying to tell us that Jesus gave a lot of responses to that. It's not telling us he didn't. It's just giving us a simple statement that Jesus responded. But what's interesting, and what you should notice when the imperfect is there, is the author is intentionally telling you that he was saying it, meaning more than once. There was a continuation to it. You should feel the freedom in your English Bibles to read those imperfects as continuous action in the past. More than one thing. Okay. Present, active, indicative, imperative, interrogative, or subjunctive? Okay, it's indicative. Dana? There was a question. No? Okay. All right.
When you're doing this method, do you ever go think to yourself, "Oh, that sounds a lot like James 1, where it says, 'Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds, for you that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness.'"
Mm-hmm.
And then, do you ever then go over those passages and start seeing the link, or do you just kind of?
Yeah, there's a benefit and a danger to looking at another passage. The benefits are, wow, my Bible says the same stuff over and over and over again. On Paul's lips, on James' lips, wow, they agree with each other. This is God's book. This is God's theology. There's a unity here. The danger is the assumption that James is saying exactly the same thing Paul is. A lot of times some things sound similar. And one of the things that we do sometimes is, hey, I don't understand the passage I'm in, but it reminds me of another passage, so if I'm going to understand this passage, I'm going to go to that other one. Well, the passage that actually bears the most weight for the meaning of the passage is the passage you're in, not another passage. We can run the risk of importing wrong meanings into the passage we don't understand. by bringing to it the meanings of passages we're more comfortable with. So, cross-reference must be done carefully. It's a great question.
And we would only know that if we go to that other passage and, diagram it and read it in context and all that stuff.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, and once you've done the hermeneutical work or the exegetical work on another passage, you're on much safer ground to let it speak to other things. But typically, we don't dig deeply. We just play hopscotch from one to another to try to understand one. When what we should do is just sit in that text and observe and observe and observe. Thanks, Jim. That's helpful. Okay. Watch over your heart with all diligence, for from it flow the springs of life. Flow the springs. What are we going to do first? Okay, let's eliminate some prepositional phrases.
With all diligence.
Okay, with all diligence is a prepositional phrase.
Or from.
Okay.
Or from.
I like from it.
From it.
Yep. From it is a prepositional phrase. Okay, of life is a prepositional phrase. And one more. Over your heart. Okay? Boy, that was a nice exercise. Didn't leave us with a lot of words. It's going to be a lot easier to find a subject and a verb here. Okay, how many clauses do we have?
2.
Okay, 2 clauses. What are our 2 clauses? Okay, yeah, this one. Watch over your heart with all diligence. From it flow the springs of life. Okay, good. What is this right here? It's a conjunction. What kind of conjunction is for? Subordinating conjunction. And how do we know that it's subordinating and not coordinating? Because it's not and or but nor. Okay. Let's start with watch over your heart with all diligence. What's our subject?
You.
Okay, an understood you. It's nice we only have one word left to work with. You. Okay, and our verb, watch. Okay, over your heart, adjectival or adverbial prepositional phrase. Yes.
Would it be way off to make part an object over an adverb, just over by itself?
In English, you have a prepositional phrase. Now, if you have another translation and instead of watch over, it says guard, then yes, heart becomes a direct object. Yeah. It's going to be 2 different ways to say the same thing. A verb with a prepositional phrase, or a verb that incorporates the direction in it and a direct object. They will say the same thing, but they'll be diagrammed differently. Great question. Okay. What about, so over your heart, what kind of prepositional phrase is it? Okay, it's adverbial, modifying. Our only choice here is watch. Over, heart. Preposition, object line, object of the preposition. Which heart? Your heart. Okay. What about with all diligence? Okay, that's an adverbial prepositional phrase as well. Preposition, object line, object of the preposition. What kind of diligence? All diligence.
the verb watch take an object next to it?
It could, if we didn't have heart embedded in this prepositional phrase. So if your translation was guard your heart, no preposition, and it would be a direct object. The verb guard, is the same verb as watch over. If watch over was one word, then we would have that. What Sarah was suggesting was having heart here and over as an adverb. Your heart. And that's not illegitimate. It's just that I have a hard time breaking up the prepositional phrase. They don't mean they don't mean different things.
But the problem is, watch over is the same as guard, so that's the,
Right.
you can say, well, the verb is watch over.
Yep. And because of that kind of thing, people have said, what value is there in diagramming in English? Aren't you going to run into difficulties if my ESV says guard and my NASB says watch over? Won't that make different diagrams? Yes, it will. And that's actually an advantage to you. As you compare two different English translations, if they say different things, or if the diagram looks really different, that's an indication that, oh, here's a spot where I can go do more research, and I can use tools to get at the original language underneath. If you're looking at 4 English translations, and they all diagram out the same, that's a really good indication that there's no hidden meaning in the Greek underneath it somewhere that you got to go dig up. Okay? But that your English translations come over from the Greek pretty easily. John? Yeah, so that's if you're looking to do research and you want to know, how do I know where to dig? English text comparison is helpful. But what you want to do is diagram the English text in front of you. You want to diagram the English text in front of you because the translators of your English version have written in English, and you're going to be diagramming the English. So if there's a problem with the diagram, if you've diagrammed the English correctly, and it doesn't match the meaning of the original text, that's not a diagramming problem, that's a translation issue. Does that make sense? Probably not necessary here. Okay. Watch over your heart with all diligence. 4, what do we do with from it flow the springs of life? What's our subject?
Spring.
Yeah, why can it not be it? Yeah, it's inside a prepositional phrase. And it sounds kind of funny, this sentence, when you say, it flow. It flow. I don't know, what? That sounds weird. But the subject is not it for the verb flow. Springs flow. Right? Springs flow. If it was this, you'd just say they flow. But the it is not the springs. The it is something else we'll talk about in a second. Okay, so your subject is springs. I'm so sorry. I'm going to move all of this up just a little bit. Watch. Over. Heart. Your. With. Diligence. Okay, now we're going to put our subordinating conjunction underneath this clause. And we're going to move our next clause to the right. Right? Subordinate clauses get indented. Okay, they're going to support what is above in some way. So we're going to move our cross to the right, indented from the main clause above. The subordinate clause gets slid over. Okay, springs is our subject.
Do you explain that?
I don't know, I was thinking it was heart. So I would think that heart would be the subject.
Oh, okay. Yeah, is heart the subject here? Hold that question. That's a good question. And Dana, you're asking, why am I indenting this clause to the
Right,
right?
the same thing. I know that from it is a prepositional phrase, so you can't have your subject
Yep.
there, but really flowing the springs of life, it's referring back to the heart, right? I'm
Okay,
confused
yes.
if Springs is the subject, I
Okay,
guess.
now,
Instead of not.
imagine, this is why we take every clause by itself. imagine there is nothing backwards. You have to diagram this clause, and you have to come up with a subject within it, and you have to come up with the verb within it. And this is off limits. You can't pick life or it. There's really only one option for the subject. You're just limited. And you can't pick a word that's not in this clause to be the subject of your clause. You have to pick something in the clause to be the subject. That's just the way it is. I feel bad. It'll make sense in a minute, but the rules is the rules. And the rules actually help us not make mistakes. Okay? If the subject is it, then we have a typo in our English Bible anyway, because it flow is not good verb-subject agreement. Okay? Can't. Okay, so springs flow. Flow is our verb. Which springs? The springs, definite article, functioning as an adjective, and of life, adjectival prepositional phrase, telling us what kind of springs. Life springs. Of is your preposition, object line, object of the preposition, of life. The of life springs flow. Now, what is this prepositional phrase from it? Yeah, modifies flow. This is an adverbial prepositional phrase telling us where. From where? From it. Okay, Dana, let's go back to your question. And Christina, same question, I believe. What is it? We've got to go to our context. Now we're going to jump out of our clause to look for the referent for it. And you told us it was what? Heart. Exactly. So let's substitute heart to it. Okay? Springs flow from heart. Springs flow from heart. Which springs? Well, life springs. The springs of life flow from heart. Now, let's look at the relationship between these two clauses. You guard it. Watch over it. Watch over your heart. Analyze that verb for me. Present. Okay, it's imperative. Is it active or passive?
Active.
It's active. What would it sound like if it were passive? Yeah, heart, be guarded, be watched. I don't know.
So any significance then, like in a tense being present, indicating like eventually we're going to come to a point where we won't?
No, that's not the... With the imperative, it's hard to draw out...
Our imperative is always present.
In English, in other languages it matters more.
Yeah.
It's hard to say a future or a past imperative.
Okay.
Right? How do I give you a past imperative? I can't even think of a way to do it. You did take out the trash, so done did. Tooked it out.
So if it's an imperative, is it pretty much always going to be present then?
In English, yes.
Okay.
That's not true in other languages because there's other reasons for using different tenses, but in English, yes. I think so. I've never asked myself that question. My gut reaction is yes. I can't think of a way to make a past imperative in English. So, but yes, it is a command. Here's this command. Watch over your heart. And watch it with all diligence. Why? This subordinating conjunction is answering the why question. Why? Well, because springs flow from your heart. Life springs flow from your heart. The relationship between a clause and a for and a subordinate clause oftentimes is about a reason. You've got your pages in front of you. Look at your clause relationship chart. It's the nice colored one. And do you see over on your right, sort of the chartreuse, or whatever color that is? What is it? Green. Okay.
You've been thinking too much.
Yeah, the green side. Do you see a category there that describes this relationship? Causal. Maybe.
Result or explanatory.
Explanatory. Is it? I think it's explanatory. It's explaining why this command. Why should I watch over my heart? Because, for the springs of life flow from it. Now, if we wanted to switch these two clauses around, and we wanted to say, springs flow, subordinating conjunction, you watch. What would that conjunction be? So, therefore, good. Both of these two diagrams say the exact same thing. Watch over your heart. Why? For springs flow. Watch, because springs flow. But if you reverse it, the subordinating conjunction changes and the clauses can stay the same wording from a for to a therefore. Springs flow, therefore you watch. And what I like to do with clauses when they're together, I like to think about it down the chart and then back up the chart. For instance, watch over your heart with all diligence. For springs of life flow from it. And I like to go back the other way. The springs of life flow from it, therefore watch. And what I've learned is that going up the chart, a for becomes a therefore. And a therefore becomes a for. They have an inverse relationship, those two subordinating conjunctions. And that's just a fun way to walk back through the diagram with subordinate relationships, is how is this clause related to this clause? And you can use the chart and the list of green and say, what is it? Is it an explanation? Is it a reason? Is it a purpose? Is it a result? And we want, not only are we doing the diagram here, but we're going to ask the question, what is the relationship between these two clauses signified by the subordinating conjunction? Okay, so we've been asking questions about how does this word relate to that word? And now we're going to be asking, okay, how does this clause relate to this clause? Does that make sense? So that's a step away from the micro grammar to the macro. And it's these relationships are what are going to help us outline an entire passage, a chapter, even a book. So your sermon outlines are going to be built off of these relationships. So that when Scott's preparing his sermons, he doesn't just read a bunch of material, do a bunch of word studies, look at a bunch of other passages, read his theology books, and then go, okay, a good Baptist is going to have 3 points in a poem. What are my 3 points going to be? Right? He's not driven by coming up with an outline on his own. He's driven by the outline that is the text. This is expository preaching, where the text itself drives the sermon. The preacher doesn't have the right to make up the structure any more than he has the right to make up the meaning, because the meaning is embedded in the structure. These little relationships of clauses to other clauses have huge significance in the meaning of a passage, and they will keep a preacher from saying whatever he wants to say. This is the short leash and a choke collar to the text that Scott wears when he preaches. The grammatical structure. It keeps you from saying things like, it is the subject. Well, it isn't the subject because it's embedded in a prepositional phrase. That's just the rule. I got a choke collar and a short leash. I can't get away from it. It's the grammar. God revealed himself through grammatical structures. And that's true in the micro, and it's also true in the macro.
Is there a way to diagram the relationship between it and heart?
You know what I do? In my diagram, I'll go back and replace the pronouns with their reference. So I'll just put the word heart there in a different color pen. And I like to do that with all my, if I could figure out who the you is supposed to be, is that Proverbs 4:23? Who's the you? Is that Solomon's son? Or is it a more general, hey, anybody that's listening, you? But if I can, I'll put a name on it, just in another colored pen.
Conceptually, what does it mean when it says springs of life? Like what?
Yeah.
I understand that, but if I'm explaining it to someone in a different language or a different thing, and I have to show it conceptually, what does that mean?
Yeah. You and I live a little bit crippled by the distance between when this was written time-wise and culture-wise, geography-wise, and technology-wise, right? Water is life. In the desert, water is life. You and I don't feel it because we go to our kitchen and we go, whoosh. So we need to get back to the ancient Near East and think about water for a little bit. And we need to think about what it means to be absolutely dependent upon it. Your subsistence, your life, down to everyday needs. I need water. I mean, still in the Middle East, women carrying pitchers down to the well or wherever the communal water supply is and carrying it all the way back to their homes to use it for all the things they need it for. Really, really important. To have a spring ready access of water for life. Here, you need to guard your heart with all diligence. Why? Because your heart is the source of what your existence is. Why do you need to take care? Why do you need to be a shepherd over your own heart? Why do you need to tell your heart what to do? Why do you need to tell your brain what to think? Why do you need to tell your emotions, hey, take a back seat to truth, pal? Why do you have to do that? Because it drives all of life. And if you're not guarding your heart, which is the wellspring, man, anything and everything can get in there. It affects everything. This is life. I don't know if that's helpful, but I think the ancient Near Eastern picture of the absolute dependency on water and the treasure of what a spring is because of what it feeds. You ladies teach in Wellspring. You've probably worked through that more than I have. Any thoughts on that, Sarah?
You said listen to Jacob. Every year Jacob teaches that verse, and it does a great job.
I haven't been to Wellspring yet, so I haven't done it. I should do that.
Well, you taught us a sermon on Sunday once too.
Did I preach that?
No, Jacob.
Oh, Jacob did. Oh, I should have paid attention in class.
Good, she said.
By the way, next week we're going to take a stab at Romans 1:16 and following as far as we can get. Now, that's all we're going to do next week is just start with Romans 1:16 and move down. 2 weeks from, yes, we are not meeting next week. We're not meeting Thanksgiving weekend. We meet for our last class on December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day. So if you want to get ahead, if you want to try to diagram starting Romans 1:16 and beyond, try to identify where the clauses start and stop. When you get a big text, eliminate prepositional phrases and then move out and bracket off your clauses. And then just do one at a time. Break it into small pieces, do one at a time. If you do nothing in preparation for class 2 weeks from now, that's fine. We're going to do it together here. But if you want to try your hand at a section and try to show not just the micro but the macro and clause relationships, that's the passage we're going to use. Romans 1:16, FF. However far we get. Okay.
Can I just ask a practical question?
Yes.
So when you first started doing this for yourself, did you have any method? Because I can just imagine writing and then having to constantly scribble out, move, to show the relation as you figure that out.
That has evolved because I started throwing away a lot of paper.
Yeah.
I mean, every time whiteboard's nice, I can just erase it and go back. So I have done things like I kept a whiteboard in my office, a chalkboard, painted a wall in chalkboard paint, scribbled it, and then when I got it like I wanted it, transferred it to paper. What I do with all the H3 guys is I have them diagram clause by clause. So every clause gets a 3x5 index card.
Okay.
And that way you can take your cards, you end up with a stack of cards, and then you can rearrange them however you want. Every card, has a diagram on it, and relative clauses go off to the side, and a little dotted box around the relative pronoun connected to the thing that it connects to. This would be what kind of conjunction between these two clauses? Coordinating. What kind of conjunction here?
Subordinating.
What kind here?
Subordinating.
What kind here?
Coordinating.
And what kind here?
Subordinating.
So you know what this passage is doing even without any words on it. If you're going to preach a sermon, you might say, okay, here's the main idea. I have it for you up here on the screen. And then there are 1, 2, 3 reasons, descriptions, whatever. But I have the guys do, every clause gets its own 3x5 card, and then we'll just spread them out on a table. And then you can take each of those cards and arrange them until you get them like you like them.
That's all.
Sir.
You recommend NAS if you do Romans 1:16?
Yeah, let's do that. Since we're all going to be working from the same text in here, find a New American Standard. Blue Letter Bible, I think, has that if you don't have your own copy. That's a great idea. So we're all looking at the same words. Okay. Because the sentence against an evil deed is not executed quickly, therefore the hearts of the sons of men among them are given fully to do evil. See if I got that right. Because the sentence against an evil deed is not executed quickly, therefore the hearts of the sons of men among them are given fully to do evil. All right, what are we going to do first? Okay. Of the sons of men. Love those ofs.
Among them.
Okay, among them.
To do evil.
Okay, why is to do not a preposition? To plus a verb, that's the trick one. Okay? To and a noun is going to be a preposition. To plus a verb is the infinitive. Okay? I've got at least one more.
Because against they are adverbs. So.
Against? Where does it end? Against an evil deed, right? Does it qualify? Preposition, an object of a preposition? No. Against an evil deed. Okay, how many clauses?
2.
Okay, where do they start and stop?
Because the sentence against the evil deed is not executed quickly.
The sentence against an evil deed is not executed quickly. What's the other clause? Yeah. The hearts of the sons of men among them are given fully to do evil. I like to leave out the conjunctions that join clauses. By the way, what kind of conjunctions are these? Why are they subordinated? Because they're not coordinated.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
I know we'll probably cover it over. How exactly do you figure out where your clauses are? Do you just kind of read your sentence and you figure out what periods you go, or commas?
That's a good question. Yes. I read it until I figure it out. But I test it. So, can I put a period? The sentence against an evil deed is not executed quickly. Period. Does that sound like a full sentence? Okay, that's a good test. If there were some words left over that just sort of dangled, then I probably needed to include them in it. If they can't stand by themselves, then they need to go inside one of the clauses. You can't leave stuff outside of the clause unless it's a conjunction. Unless it's bad writing.
How about using one verb?
That's another good trick, is look for your subject and your verb.
Okay.
Yeah, one main verb. We're going to have other things that act like verbs, but you can't have, more than one main verb. You can have like, I ran and I walked and ran the marathon. But still, it's just one subject with a compound verb. I don't know, I just confused myself. Okay, scratch that. Something about what you said, Christina, is right, and I don't know how to repeat it. What did you say?
Just, thought the idea has one verb,
Yeah.
one main
Yeah.
verb.
Yeah.
normally.
If you can identify the verb and then find its subject, that's going to help you locate the clause. Okay? In this case, the sentence against an evil deed is not executed quickly. How do we diagram this one? What's our subject? Sentence. What's our verb? Is executed. Okay. What is not? Okay, it's an adverb. It's our little negation. Okay, what about quickly? Adverb. It's got that nice ly ending. Smedley is not an adverb, by the way. Don't be confused. What about against an evil deed? Okay, is that adjectival or adverbial? Adjectival modifying sentence. What kind of sentence? It's an against an evil deed sentence. Against is your preposition. Deed, the object of the preposition. What kind of deed? Indefinite article and the adjective evil. What kind of deed? An evil deed. What kind of sentence? The sentence, an against evil deed kind of sentence. The sentence is executed. It's not executed, and it's not executed quickly. Okay, there's your clause. What's our other clause? The hearts of the sons of men among them are given fully to do evil. Okay, what's our subject? Hearts. What's our verb? Are given. Okay, what about this infinitive? To do. To do. How do we do infinitives? Okay, the little mountain. It's completing the verbal idea. To do. And our infinitive is going to take a direct object. What's our direct object of the infinitive? Evil. Okay. What part of speech is a direct object? Has to be a noun. Okay. Hearts are given to do evil. Okay. How are they given? Another ly adverb. Fully. Okay, what about the string of prepositional phrases? Of the sons. What does that modify? Okay. Which hearts? Of the sons' hearts. Okay, of men. Adjectival or adverbial prepositional phrase? Okay, Jen says adverbial. Okay, so we said this was functioning as an adjectival prepositional phrase, so this might be adverbial if it's modifying the whole thing. What if it's not modifying the whole thing? What if it's just modifying sons? Then it's just adjectival. Okay? It is. It's which sons? The sons of men.
So I went ahead and diagrammed it under sons, is that correct?
That is correct. It's modifying sons. Okay? Among them. Adjectival or adverbial? Yeah, it's adjectival. What does it modify?
Men?
Okay. Men or, what is that? Or sons. Okay. How do we figure out or hearts? So here's a noun, here's a noun, and here's a noun that can all be modified by this adjectival prepositional phrase. Which one is it?
Would it help to decide what a Ben is referring to?
Yes?
Isn't that sons?
So, is it men who are among them, and them, we don't know who them is? Or is it sons who are among men? Or is it hearts which are among the sons? Or is it hearts which are among men?
Yes.
We got to put it somewhere.
Among the sons.
So it's sons who are among men, or hearts who are among sons?
Sons and
Sons are among them.
Okay? So what kind of son is described here? And among, and let's just put men there for clarity's sake, if that's what we're going to do. The hearts of the sons, what kind of sons? Of men, which are among men. What kind of sons? Of men's sons. They belong to men. These sons come from men, or they belong to men, and they are among men. Maybe. Okay. Our other option is hearts. What kind of hearts? Hearts that are among the sons of men. The hearts that are. Can we say the heart is among me, within me?
You got rid of man.
The sons of men. What kind of men? The men who are among them. Among who? Who's the them?
Themselves.
Among themselves. Okay? I don't know. But that's how I would go about asking the questions. Try it in every slot. I'd have to think about this some more.
So,
In this
with
case-
something like this, would you read before and after to get more?
And it might or might not help.
Okay.
And how about the original?
Somebody look up Ecclesiastes 8 and see if it helps. Christina?
The original sometimes. would
Sometimes?
help.
Yeah, if we get stuck, we might look at the original. I hadn't thought to ask this question, so thank you for it. The diagram forces you to address every single word. It's really irritating.
What did you want to know?
Yeah, is there anything in the near context which is going to tip us off to who the them are?
Maybe the wicked.
Okay? So then I have seen the wicked buried, those who used to go in and out from the holy place, and they were soon forgotten in the city where they did thus. This too is futility. Because the sentence against an evil deed is not executed quickly. Therefore the hearts of the sons of men among them, among the wicked, are given fully to do evil. So maybe it's sons among the wicked.
Yeah.
I can get along with that.
ESV doesn't even have that extra among them thing. Just deal with it.
Okay. So the answer is diagram the ESV. Just skip it all. Just
My version didn't have it.
ESV. There we go. It's gone. No longer accountable to that. set of words. Okay. So it sounds like sons of men who are among the wicked, belonging to the population of the wicked, part and parcel with the rest of them. Okay? What is the relationship between these two clauses? Because the sentence is executed, not quickly, hearts are given to do evil. By the way, that's just a staggering statement. Don't you know this is true in your own life? Man, I didn't get any consequences for that. My parents didn't even notice. I can do more. I mean, do you feel that in your heart? There's not an immediate consequence to a thought pattern, to a behavior, to an idol, whatever. Well, I guess I can have a little more of this. That's resident in the heart of every one of us. What is the relationship between these two? The sentence isn't executed quickly. Hearts are given to do evil. What are our subordinating conjunctions telling us? And where do these clauses go?
Result.
Why am I going to put two circles there?
The because and the therefore.
Yeah, because and the therefore. In English, we don't often start with becauses. You may have had your wrist slapped in school if you started with a because. Why? Because it's supposed to go at the end. You say, I'm going to the store because I want to eat. You don't start a sentence with because. Until you get into high school and you find out that good, complex writing begins with becauses. And you have to undo all those rules. And because I was so hungry, I went to the store. And we put the because part in front because it brings emphasis to my hunger. I don't really care as much that you know that I went to the store. I want you to know more. I want you to feel more my hunger. Because I was hungry, I went to the store. Now, if I said it this way, I went to the store. Why? Oh, because I was hungry. Do you feel the difference? I can put the emphasis on going to the store, or I can put the emphasis on my hunger by the order in which I place the sentences. But the logical relationship, the grammatical relationship between the clauses is the same, no matter which comes first. I'm going to diagram not according to word order, but according to grammatical relationship. Does that make sense? So one of these clauses is the main clause, and one is the subordinate clause.
Is it ever possible to have two subordinate clauses for a previous verse?
Yes, absolutely. And we'll see that in Romans 1. Yep. Yeah, you can have a main clause and subordinate, 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 subordinate. You can have a lot.
But you don't think that's not here?
Well, we only have two clauses. You're asking, can both of these be subordinate to what is ahead of it? Yeah. But that's not what's happening here. But that is possible. Okay? So, would you put one here or two here? Okay? And then therefore 2 is subordinate to 1. Anybody have a different
Yeah,
thought?
I think it does it.
Okay. Okay, we got two different schemes.
Would it be like cause and effect though? Cause would come first.
Okay, cause and effect. Which one's the cause and which one's the effect?
The cause would be, you're not, because the justice is not executed.
Right. And what's neat is our word cause is even indicating that in the because. That's kind of what because means. Because the sentence against evil deeds not executed quickly, hearts are given to do evil. That is a cause and effect relationship. However, the effect is the main idea, and the cause is the subordinate idea. This because is a subordinating conjunction that subordinates the clause that it has to the one underneath. What is therefore? It's also a subordinating conjunction, which subordinates its clause to the other clause it's in relationship to. So, this is really awkward. If there were no because, if you just said, the sentence against an evil deed is not executed quickly, therefore, the hearts of the sons of men, I'll simplify it. Sentence isn't executed, therefore, hearts are given to evil. Then we say, 1, therefore, 2. Right? If therefore isn't there, and we have because the sentence against an evil deed is not executed quickly, hearts are given to evil. Then we would say 2 because 1. Does that make sense? It all depends on which conjunction is being used. Both conjunctions are being used, and it makes an awkward English sentence. Does anybody have another English version? Jenny, you want to read the ESV for us?
That's pretty much the same. Because the sentence against an evil deed is not executed speedily, the heart of the children of man is fully set to do evil.
So much better.
There's not two.
It's so much better. What the New American Standard has done here is decided 2 different clause relationships at the same time, which makes it diagrammatically impossible. So what is the lesson here? In Ecclesiastes 8, use the ESV. I didn't think that's yeah, anyway. This creates a dilemma that you would have to answer. And in this case, this is just an awkward English sentence that the NASB translators chose to represent this text.
I had heard that the NASB is more literal. Is there a reason they used them both from the original?
That's a good question. I will, how are we doing? Okay, we're at the end of our time. I'm going to stop the tape.